talking to people, one of my friends was funny. He was like, I kind of hated how they kept calling him a therapist just because Wit said it one time. And I was like, you let Wit claim that moniker. Wit said he's a therapist. He's a therapist.
We should make shirts. Wit said he's a therapist.
He's a therapist. Like, nobody questions. What's a therapist, Wit?
Let him own it. I'm Mel.
And I'm Belle.
And this is Mel and Belle. Welcome everyone to our first episode of CREM-TALKING, Wind and Truth.
Booyah.
Booyah is correct. Booyah. Please note, before we start, this is going to be full spoilers for the Cosmere. Everything. We're not holding back on anything.
Before we actually start to get in and read the book, we thought it'd be fun to talk about where we're starting from, like initial impressions, any predictions we might have, and also what we might have heard before reading the book. As Mel said, she's already read it. I haven't, and I feel like it's kind of been difficult to avoid all spoilers for this book, so I think there are quite a few things that I am ready to talk about.
Absolutely. It's a lot. The reviews for this book, if you're in the Sanderson world, if you're in the Cosmere world, you already know. It's controversial in some ways.
I mean, I'll admit everything I've heard. I'm a little nervous. I feel like the more I talk to people about it, the more I'm like, please stop talking, because I would like to actually enjoy this book. Just because I just feel like a lot of the reviews, they're like, it's really, really good, but there's this thing. And I'm like, okay, wait, that kind of doesn't make me excited. But I'm going to go through and read it anyways, because the Stormlight Archive is too darn long not to actually finish. I've made it this far. I'm committing.
Well, when it comes to Wind and Truth, it's really hard not to be all in, because it's very Cosmere forward.
What are the things I know about Wind and Truth? And Mel over here is going to try to not spoil anything more. Yeah, we'll see. So I guess first off, I should start with, I have audiobooked day one already. We went to Dragonsteel Nexus last year, and on the car ride back, I was with my uncle, and he was just very excited, and so we audiobooked all of day one, and I will admit that was a little awkward when we got to the Shallan Adolin shower scene. I kept being like, is it gonna happen? Is Brandon Sanderson gonna go up to one spicy? Would you argue that this would be his most horny book?
In terms of quantity over quality, yes.
Okay. I was gonna say, just because I'm thinking of like characters, this is gonna lead into the next thing of like, I do know that Renarin and Rlain get together, and Yasin and Wit are also a thing. So off of that, just all of the couples in my head, and we've already seen like Navani Dalinar stuff. I just feel like this book is going to be just like a lot more just like intimate scenes than we're used to seeing from Brandon.
Seeing lots and lots of safe hands uncovered.
Oh, not the safe... Oh, sorry, safe hand. Let me put that down.
I guess that's a prediction, right?
That is a prediction. That I did not mean to predict there, but yeah, that's a prediction. That being said, I also, the whole 10-day structure of the book that, the previous books were structured in parts, parts 1 through 5, and this one's going to be structured in days, basically each of the 10 days until the end of the worlds. So that's going to be interesting. And then the final thing that I definitely know about this book is that Kaladin is just too powerful for it, and so Brandon had to keep Shallan, Adolin, and Kaladin separate from each other for the majority of the book.
I love that ship name.
Kaladin. It's so good.
Yeah. It is true. That ship is a powerful force in this fandom. How can you avoid it?
How can you avoid it? And I just, all the people complaining there's not enough, like, Shallan, Adolin time, or there's not a lot of Kaladin, Adolin time, anything. The trio's just not together in this book, to my understanding.
Do you think that they should be? Or do you think that that's good because there's so much like storyline, so many different plots to wrap up or continue?
I mean, I feel like we kind of brushed over the fact that Kaladin killed Shallan's brother, and like she kind of just shoves it under, or she goes, you know what, that's okay. And I feel like not much else is done with that, and I feel like for the three of them, that's probably the only thing I would kind of want to see talked about, just because like that's kind of huge. I feel like his death kind of changes the whole course of the cause of the Stormlight Archive, the way the plot goes, the books, everything. Lips sealed. I feel like a spoiler. You can't even look
I
at
can't
me.
confirm or deny anything. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to respond without being
Without saying more.
I think for this one in particular, though, Belle,
Yeah.
before I read it, like, that was a prediction of mine as well, that we would go into that. And I won't confirm or deny whether or not we did, but I also thought that that would be an important thing to go over.
But otherwise, for the three of them, I don't know if there are only any, or if there are many like leftover strings between them. I mean, I did get, like I said, I'm coming in. I do have day one knowledge, so I do know they at least get to see each other for like 5 minutes and say bye, before they go away again. And I mean, there was the wedding. Like, I feel like they're friends, and there's not a lot of unresolved conflict between them.
And I'm sure we'll get more into that as we get into the next episode and actually start going through the book. But I will say that that goodbye scene is probably the most heart-wrenching thing, at least for me, early in this book. There were a lot of really heart-wrenching goodbyes in day one.
Yeah.
Because there's this sense of the end is coming, we're in the apocalypse, probably never gonna see you again. If I do, it won't be the same way. That type of sentiment is felt across, and that's partially, I think, why it's so spicy. Because imagine, like,
the world's ending.
The world is ending, and so hold on to your loved ones, because this is the last chance. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 days. That imminent feeling carries on through that whole first part of this book.
I will say this would all make sense to me even if I hadn't read day one of the book. I feel like that's a pretty acceptable place to take day one, would be to bring all the characters back together again and figure out where they're going. I feel like he kind of does that within all of his books. They all have like a structure of like, you know, he ends the books with them. Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart, but then by the next book, usually he brings them back so they can figure out what they're going to do next. But that being said, I have some, like many others who have read the book, I have some concerns going into it.
Okay.
Primarily, I feel like the biggest one is just, you think I'd be used to it by now. Like, I've read 4 of these things, and I know I shouldn't complain, but this book continues to be massive. And I'm a little worried with what he does with all that space. One, the 10-day structure could help, because I feel like, you know, it gives an actual timeline of things that none of his books have had before. But I think my other worry is, like, Brandon Sanderson, like, even throughout the other books, he kind of likes to give little details of everyone's days, and sometimes that works and sometimes it drags. And I'm very worried that in putting it in a day structure, he's gonna be like, day 1, here is Kaladin, here is Shallan, here is Adolin, here is Navani, here is Rlain, here is Wit, here is Yasna, and we're just gonna go, like, one character to character to character. And I'm okay with that kind of, like, fast pace, but I feel like we're gonna cut to some of these characters, and they're not really gonna be doing anything. I'm worried the pacing is gonna be weird.
Well, that's very valid. I will say, without saying too much, that that's one of the main criticisms, I suppose, of this book, that the pacing is very different from other Brandon Sanderson books, and we know the fandom loves their Sanderlanches. And if you make an entire book a Sanderlanche, the ending doesn't quite hit the same way as like an Oathbringer slow burn and then that rush at the end, right? I don't know how he would have done it differently. Like I appreciate the different structure. It's different. And like I said, the countdown for me is interesting and brings in a sense of anxiety that like I can kind of feel with the characters. There's pros and cons to it, but those concerns are so valid, and that's part of the criticism, part of the issue that a lot of these longtime Brandon Sanderson fans have.
Well, I mean, again, I haven't read it. Maybe my opinion on this will change, but I feel like another way to look at this then would be like maybe it's full of Sanderlanches because the entire series was kind of a slow burn for this book, and everything was just building up to this. I will say I did not really enjoy Rhythm of War on my second read through. That was not the way. I know, I'm sorry. That's not the way it went the first time. I don't know what happened, but I was not vibing with the Rhythm of War stuff, and so I don't know. Maybe I need to change the pace.
Maybe I hope so. I hope, Belle, that you enjoy it and that it is worth it to you. There are definitely criticisms to be made about this book. Absolutely, there are definitely, like, I'm not saying that it's perfect or anything like that, but I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Well, I'll be a little sappy here. Regardless of whether or not I absolutely hate this book, I absolutely love this book, I will feel that it is worth reading just for, journey before destination, and also, we're sitting here talking about it, of like there's so much discourse that I've had about this book already without even reading it, that I'm kind of I can be grateful for it and having spent that time.
That's so valid. You're so good.
Thanks. I think along those lines, I'm a little worried. I feel like most of the characters are fully fleshed out. I feel like looking within their character like arcs, I'm not sure where most of them are gonna go, because I feel like they've already like come so far. If Kaladin's whole thing is just like, accepting that he can't save everyone. He did that with Teft at the end of Rhythm of War. I know I just said I hated it, but he did that with Teft at the end of Rhythm of War, and I think you get a little bit of that in part one, but I feel like also there's just, where else does he go? I guess he's gonna have this whole like therapist arc thing, which talking to people, one of my friends was funny. He was like, I kind of hated how they kept calling him a therapist just because Wit said it one time, and I was like, you let Wit claim that moniker. Wit said he's a therapist. He's a therapist.
We should make shirts. Wit said he's a therapist. He's a therapist.
He's a therapist. Like, nobody questions. What's a therapist?
Let him own it. Let him own it.
I think that goes for, like, Shallan. She's either gonna absorb Radiant and become one person, or she's gonna get a bunch of new personalities. And I think there's gonna be no in-between on that one. And I think maybe it is that finality of that the 10 days are going, like the world is ending, so like, even if they have the residual character arc stuff to work on, it doesn't matter right now. We got stuff to do.
Well, I think it's also a good reminder what you just said. Like, we're talking about 10 days. We're talking about a 1 week on Roshar. That this book covers the span of 1 week. And so maybe it makes sense that they've all already met their end of their arcs, or close to the end of their arcs, because they just have 1 more week and then the story is over until the second half.
That is an interesting point. I will take that. Part of my brain is still arguing of like, nah, it's not a good story without good character arcs. But maybe, the slow burn in, like, this is the Sanderlanche. There is no character arc. There is only action and safe hands, apparently.
There's definitely character arc, though.
Okay.
Well,
I guess they have, like, who's left? Like, Seth. Seth can definitely go through a character arc. I feel like the character arcs are all just, like, the background characters.
so is that a prediction of yours? Seth
Yes,
is going to have a
Seth
character arc.
Yes. Do I know what his character arc is going to contain? I read Day One. I know exactly what's going to happen. I know Kaladin's going to try to therapy his way into Seth's life the entire time.
You've seen the setup already.
I've seen the setup already. And then I guess, like, one last final concern here. I'm really worried about the whole Cosmere just, like, crashing into this book. I feel like the reason why the first 3 books of the series are so strong is because they're standalone. They're, like, their own little contained thing. And I feel like that really gives the ability for the characters to shine, to really get into those, like, deep character development arcs, going forward, going backwards. Once the Cosmere starts creeping in, the more that happens, I feel like it's just gonna get really convoluted and muddy, and the story itself of, like, Roshar is not going to shine. Like, I know everyone's really excited. Earlier you mentioned Easter eggs. Easter eggs are fun. I could kind of care less for them if the story's not there. If anything, I feel like if the story's not strong, they kind of distract from it. There are going to be a lot of exposed safe hands in this book, including male exposed safe hands. What?
Or do you mean Malin? I feel like we had more Rlain POVs and is that a spoiler? I'm so sorry.
I don't know if that counts. I feel like that's pretty vague.
This is pretty vague.
I mean, that makes me more excited to read it if it helps. That's one of the ones that I'm like, good, I want more Rlain. I really enjoyed his sections with Bentley. Again, I know I just said I hated them before, but his sections with Bentley were fascinating. Rlain is so quiet and in the background for most of the series, and I feel like that is when he finally, like, got to the forefront a little bit more. Like, I know technically he does swear Spren too, and so that's, like, he becomes a Knight Radiant, and through that becomes relevant to the main story, but also just the way he, like, yells at Bentley and just has, like, all of these opinions very vocally. Like, I feel like there's a couple of scenes early on in that Rhythm of War 2 with Kaladin, where Kaladin just kind of realizes that he's been a little racist, been a little discriminatory toward Rlain.
Just your average Alethi racism.
But yeah, so I'm excited. I'd be down for more Rlain. I think probably one of the more interesting characters in the Stormlight archive.
I definitely agree. He is one of the more interesting characters in that he is... Brandon Sanderson does such a good job at making most of his characters, all of his main characters, POV characters, very complex people. With the exception of maybe Lift.
I know. Lift is complex. What are you... Waffles. Pancakes, man. Food is more complex than you'll ever understand.
All kinds of different pancakes. You got pancakes with chocolate chips. You got pancakes with... What would you have on Roshar? Bits of clam?
Ugh. I think Lift's thing is that she is complex. We're just not able to see it yet because her whole character arc dynamic thing is that she's trying not to be complex. Lift is not a prediction for this one, and I can confirm Mr. Brandon Sanderson has said that one of her POVs is she will be the focus of one of those books. I feel like that's the other thing when you talk about spoilers and things with these fandoms. Like, it's kind of hard to have spoilers when your author is so upfront with what he's working on and what he's trying to do with these books.
And yet, there are still surprises.
Oh, absolutely.
I've still been surprised. This book surprised me in different ways. I will just say I'm pleased with where everyone ended at the end of this book.
See, that's interesting, because again, I feel like I have heard quite a few of the reviews. And I feel like one of the things is that, like, he didn't wrap it up quite as, like, succinctly as people would have liked.
Well, I mean, that might be
individual preference.
It might be individual preference. They also might be talking more about, like, the literary, like, side. I'm talking about literally, like, how each character's,
like, physically where
ends,
they're at, where
they
at.
Physically are at. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Kaladin somehow unsaid the fourth ideal and went 3 steps backwards.
Is that one of your predictions?
No, it is not. But that's the sarcastic one. Kaladin has classic depression, PTSD, that kind of thing. And so, like, you know, I'm sure he has another episode within this book, most definitely. You don't just wake up and it's all magically fixed. But I think he's gotten the tools at this point to hopefully deal with it better. I mean, maybe that's something I want to see. I want to see more, like, sad boy Kaladin cheering himself up. So far within the books, there's a lot of other people cheering Kaladin up or distracting him. And I would love to see Kaladin being like, you know what? My life. I'm gonna just be happy today. I feel like he just is gonna reevaluate all of his ideals that he's spoken of, like, what does protection mean specifically, and how does one protect without lifting a sword, because we'll see. I hope he lifts a sword again. He's kind of good at it.
You mean a spear?
Sorry, a spear. I think one prediction that's kind of changed, and this was probably... I think this might just because of all the talk. I don't know. Maybe I've just changed my mind. Of, like, I was really expecting Kaladin to be the champion. I think we were all expecting Kaladin to be the champion. But I kind of feel like he's not gonna be the champion. In fact, if I have to relate this to another book, I kind of feel like Kaladin might pull a Zazid.
Okay.
Of, like, he's technically in a separate part of the narrative, but whatever he does in this part of the narrative has direct, like, what's the word? Direct effect onto the main narrative and the main battle with Odium. So maybe he's not there, maybe he's not fighting, but whatever he's doing over here, it's gonna mess something up. It's gonna do something.
So you think he turns into kind of like a Hero of Ages type situation where, like, he's not in the fight like Vin and Ellen and all of that jazz, but at the end, like, there's your person?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't. That
You can't. You're not even. Don't touch that. Yeah, don't touch that.
Yeah. That with a 10-foot spear.
Along with that, a less serious Kaladin prediction, and maybe this is less of a prediction and more of a ask. Dear Kaladin, sir, please, I am begging you, do not romantically pursue your spren in any form or fashion. Please, sir. Please.
I knew you were gonna say.
It's my one thing that I go off about.
Yeah, the Caladan ship is... I feel like it used to be very controversial now. I don't know if people aren't really saying too much about it after this book. When I was making predictions, my thing was, please don't kill my Kaladin. Like,
I think Kaladin...
Please don't
if Kaladin dies in the same way, like, Kelsier died. Like, I think he's gonna just, like, stick around. They're not gonna pull a Wax. That's for sure. Not a Wax. A Wayne. Sorry. They're not gonna pull Wayne.
I understood.
You got it.
I got it.
I just feel like he's too important at this point. I think there's still, Wit's stories that he's been telling, which is the one with my dude who's running before the storm. What's his Fleet? I feel like, if we really read Flit's story, I feel like Kaladin very likely could ascend to godhood this book. Like, Kaladin becomes honor. So my answer to that question is there are two options. Kaladin either becomes honor, ascends to some form of, like, godhood or high investiture, or he speaks the fifth ideal. But I don't think if he speaks the fifth ideal, he's going to speak it in this book. I think we're going to hit that for the next half of the series, just because, what are we going to do? Like, I know the next half of the series is going to be, like, the big Cosmere showdown, but I feel like if all of your characters have said, like, the fifth ideal, like, that's, like, unlocking the super secret power before getting to the final boss.
I think it's a good prediction.
Adolin carries everything. Adolin is going to be the highlight of this book. He's going to have the best character arc. He's going to just really step forward as a character and take on a lot of responsibility. And I think he's just gonna be the most entertaining out of everyone.
I just want everyone to know that Belle told me this months ago. Like, before Nexus, before anything came out. So I just want everybody to know that.
Thank you.
Before we go on. And that doesn't mean anything, Belle. That's not
that's not a spoiler.
As a spoiler. I just want to make everything crystal clear that that was solely you and your prediction.
I mean, if you want the reasoning, I feel like Adolin, as the only non-Radiant at this point within the main group, like literally all of the Colons are Radiants at this point except for him, but I think he just has the most interesting dynamic with the world and the people around him for that reason. Like, I feel like he really shined in Rhythm of War because, you know, he figured out that he is worth value. The thing with Maya Lauren is kind of huge. I think Adolin's gonna figure out how to bring back the dead spread, and then everything's gonna, like, turn around. So I felt like it's been... Adolin was, like, the hidden ace up Brandon Sanderson's sleeve this entire time of, like, he's been here from the very beginning. Everybody's kind of pushed him aside at least within like the first 2-3 books because, you know, he doesn't have any powers. He's just kind of there. He's fun to look at and he's pretty and he's kind of funny. But I think he's got some merit to him. He's got some power.
I think Adolin might be the most lovable character that Brandon Sanderson has written because he has a certain level of realness. You just learn so much about who he really is and his innate goodness. And yet he also is a real person. I mean, he murders Sadius, like, and the fandom has a pretty good consensus that was justified.
We forgive him. There's not an issue there. To sum it up, Adolin is big himbo, but we love him.
Yeah, we love him.
We might have said it earlier. I think Shallan's gonna be interesting as she goes and does her little adventure. I think she's either obviously gonna eat Radiant. We have to do something with these multiple personality things. She's either gonna eat Radiant, or she's just gonna explode into a bunch of different personas again. Maybe she has more control of those personas at that time, but I think there's only one or the other. There's no in between there.
Okay, so let's think about this.
Yeah.
Who are her personas right now?
Yeah, so right now we, if we look at the end of Rhythm of War, she gets rid of Formless, and she gets rid of Veil. So theoretically, she should only have Shallan and Radiant. I feel like there's a possibility that, like, Formless is still there, or, like, there's another Formless 2, which is just gonna be, like, another deeper part of herself. Like, we know at this point Shallan's coping mechanism is anytime she realizes something about herself that she doesn't quite like or can't face, she creates a persona to face that for her. And I think the hope is going into Wind and Truth that she's not going to do that anymore. She's going to go on this search for, oh god, I'm going to butcher the name, Ba-Asham? Say it for me.
Ba-Edo Mishram.
Yes, Ba-Edo Mishram. See, I still butchered it. Anyways, she's going to go on her quest for this Unmade, and then find some other truth, and she's just gonna splinter into pieces. There's the other fact that, like, you know, her mom's still alive. And I feel like that's kind of got some trauma, some juicy bits there that she might split. I feel like I totally see a personality splitting off of Shallan that is like, I love my mom, she's done nothing wrong. And then the Shallan that is like, my mom is a herald, and that's kind of messed up. And she kind of did a lot of things wrong. She kind of caused all of this to happen. I don't know if this was really a prediction or just like a confirmation that we've gotten from Brandon Sanderson at this point with all of the things he says of, like, you know, her mom is a herald. By her mom dying, by Shallan killing her mom specifically, she sent him to the other world, and probably is what caused Tom to break. And caused the recreants, basically. Like, Shallan killing her mom just set off this thing. Like, it was probably bound to happen anyways. Let's face it. But I don't know if Shallan's gonna be able to understand that.
Well, that flashback chapter starts the world was ending and Shallan was to blame.
Confirmation from the very beginning. It was there.
Very good, Belle.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's a good prediction, and that's all I can say.
That's all you can say. And then just going down the line, I predict Dalinar is just going to be Dalinar the entire time. And that, I was like, that's as specific as I'm going to be. But no, I just think Dalinar is just going to keep insisting that he's going to be the champion every single day. And just be like, I got this. And then be super stressed out the entire time, being like, I have to train, I have to do something. And then along those lines, Navani is also just going to be super stressed until, like, you know, just trying to hold together your 3-room just the whole time.
Navani, what do you think about the Navani-Dalinar dynamic? And do you think it's going to change in this next book, too?
Ooh, Navani-Dalinar dynamic. Because what are they right now? I would say Navani and Dalinar
They're
are
married. Right.
They're married. They're like, I would say they're the super parents. They're like the super parents of the entire series. They're the super parents of Urithiru. They're the super parents of all of
Radiance.
of the Radiance. Specifically are Kaladin, Shallan, and Adolin. This is a spoiler. They're the bondsmiths. Like, they literally take care of everything. And so I think because of that, they have like a very parental role, like caretaker thing going on, and I feel like that's only going to continue, if not evolve more so within Wind and Truth. I mean, Navani has to figure out all of her bondsmith powers and what her control over Urithiru exactly like means, and if that grants her, like, you know, Dalinar can open a perpendicularity. Is there anything that Navani can do with the sibling that is akin to that or can help them in a bigger way? But I think they're also just going to be there for their kids. They still have the weight of this kingdom on their shoulders, and I don't think they're going to get a moment to relax. 1 week until the end, and like you said, we're talking about essentially the king and queen of everything. Of all of it. Yeah. Very broad prediction. The Ghostbloods will probably do something significant, but not enough to affect the entire course of the book. Like, I feel like they're gonna be there, they're gonna do something, it's going to affect the overarching, like, Cosmere storyline, but it's not gonna directly affect the Odium fight. I mean, if it does directly affect the Odium storyline, I feel like it'll be more in like an aftershock kind of thing, or like just like a consequence of a consequence, rather than them being like, we specifically showed up to help in the fight with Odium. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they're just gonna keep pulling their little strings from the corner or from the background and kind of hope that whatever they do actually does something.
That's another good prediction. My question is, if they did do something that affected the story, would that bother you?
Ooh, okay, so, I mean, Maraise, it depends on how they do this, because, like, Maraise has been there, I want to say since book 2, maybe earlier. Like, Maraise has been there, like, the Ghostbloods have been there from a very early, like, standpoint, so I think the Ghostbloods existing and having, like, a significant effect on the book, or, like, affecting things, I think that's fine, because I wouldn't quite tie them into the full Cosmere just yet. I feel like once you bring in, like, you know, there's probably going to be more conversation about, like, who's their leader? Who is, I forget what Kelsier goes by on Roshar, but who's that guy? Thydakar, yeah, who's Thydakar? Why did he choose Thydakar? So many questions. Again, I'm very nervous, but still kind of interested to see how Sanderson, like, brings in the Cosmere more for people to understand. And that's also why I feel like they can't, at least, like, the outside Ghostblood members, like, I feel like they can't introduce any new Ghostblood members in this book, because I feel like that's just gonna blow everything up. But they can probably, like, use the characters that are already there.
I mean, it was interesting for me to hear you say that it wouldn't bother you, because that was one of the, without saying too much, that was one of the criticisms that I had heard about this book, was that, like, what are the Ghostbloods doing here? That the involvement of the Ghostbloods in the story bothered people because they felt like it was too much Cosmere, it was too much external forces on Roshar and Roshar dealing with their own battle, their own problem. And so you bring in all of this external stuff. But I think that you make a really valid point that they have been here since very early on, that they're really intrinsic to Shallan's arc and storyline.
Putting on my literary hat really quickly, as if it hasn't been on this entire time. I feel like there's two ways to view Wind and Truth, and I think that is as, like, you know, there is the one as, like, the ending of the Stormlight Archive, and just, like, wrapping up all of their arcs, of, like, you know, the main idea is beating Odium, and Roshar needs to conquer Odium, and that's that. And I can totally see why, like, the Ghostbloods being there could be a little irritating, because I'm sure the Ghostbloods being there has so many insinuations about other planets interfering. Though, you know, I feel like once we hit book 3, book 4, we know that, like, so many different people are on this planet. Like, somehow everyone has found their way to Roshar in some form or another. But I think the other way to think about this, which is probably going to be the more difficult one, is to think of it as a stepping stone or like a stopping point until you get to the next adventure. And I think in that way, when you think about it in the overall overarching, like, Cosmere story, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Odium is the most dangerous one. He's been stuck to Roshar. Of course, everyone cares about what happens on this planet, because, you know, if Odium gets out, the entire Cosmere is at risk. So of course these people are going to show up and be like, hey, we don't want to help you, but we kind of need to help you. I mean, there's a kind of the question of, like, are they going to make things worse? Mm-hmm. Of, like, having their presence there, how does that affect them, and what is that going to do for the, like, overarching story? That is all I have for Cosmere predictions, thoughts, and feelings. Do you have any questions? Anything you're specifically super excited about?
I'm excited on this reread to understand more deeply, like, the history of Roshar. I feel like there's a lot of information at one point in this book that's thrown at you all at once. And I'm hopeful that on this reread, I'll learn more insights and feel like I have a greater grasp and understanding of how we ended up where we are.
I feel like that's partially why I'm excited for this little thing we're doing right here of, like, me reading it for the first time, you rereading it, because I feel like that means I'll be able to get to experience it and just be like, yay, great, this is all this stuff. And then you'll get to be like, but wait, there's this thing, did you see this? And, like, you can, like, point out things, and hopefully I don't have to reread it later.
I will be doing the rereading for you.
You're doing the rereading for me, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. I'm hopeful that the series has a good dynamic in that way, where not only do we bring different things to the table as far as, like, the geek lore person and the educated English literary person, but also in that it is your first time reading this book and it's my second time reading this book. So, and I feel like with all of Sanderson's books, the second time you read it is really like the first time you're reading it. Stop thinking about trying to imagine and grasp the world itself and figuring out how the magic system works, and just focus on the details of what's happening, catching the Easter eggs, all of that. And I'm excited to have that experience with this one.
So, where do we go? Where do we go from here? I think we're still thinking through exact, like, details, but I feel like we might play a little bit by ear of just, like, reading as much as I can think of before hitting a good detail. I feel like it's a good stopping point to talk about. So that might be a couple of chapters, that might be, like, half an entire part. I feel like we're just gonna play it by ear based off exactly what you just said of, like, you know, sometimes there is so much information thrown at you that, I don't know, maybe we'll do, like, an entire hour-long video about 5 pages. I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't either, and I think that's a good way. Something like this, it's a big endeavor, and if you try to do it chapter by chapter, you're gonna have some weeks where it's like, we have nothing to talk about. And you might have sometimes where we have way too much to talk about. We could talk about this for the next 3 weeks, just this one chapter or whatever it may be. So I think that going chronologically, but then probably ending up with topic videos would be about that middle that you're describing.
Well, that's all we have for predictions talking about Wind and Truth introduction. Hopefully we are all ready and excited to dig into this massive book. I am still wishy-washy, but more excited than I was at the beginning, I will be honest. If you're excited and you want to keep watching, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you feel like you want to hop in on any of the comments, like, please feel free to jump in and talk about anything.
But make sure you leave a spoiler warning because Belle has not read it yet, as you can tell. But please, I want to know, how were our predictions? What do you think? Did I do okay not spoiling, or did I say too much?
Hopefully we'll see you next time, whenever that may be.
So in the meantime, read books,
Drink water,
and be you.
bye.
Bye.